Hello chess lovers! If you remember previously I have already shared with you a famous chess game known as the Ukrainian Immortal. That was a game played between Yefim Korchmar and Abram Polyak. On your screen you can see that game, and by the way, as we have reached the critical position, you can pause the video and try to find the winning line for white. In case you missed this game, the link will be in the comment section. But what I want to share with you today is another magnificent game which truly deserves to be known as a Ukrainian Immortal. The game was played just a few days ago at 2019 Lorca Open in round 7. Now let me introduce the players. With the white piece is playing Spanish chess grandmaster Marc Narciso Dublan, and his opponent is Ukrainian chess grandmaster Vitaliy Bernadskiy. But before starting our game, make sure that you are subscribed in order not to miss my future uploads. So as I've already mentioned, in this game Narciso Dublan had white pieces and he opened up with d4, to which Bernadskiy responded with knight f6, c4, g6, and f3. White is setting up Anti-Grünfeld system with the intention of establishing a massive pawn center. Usually this leads to double-edged positions, and the players are choosing this variation as a must-win line. I remember Levon Aronian chose this line against Maxim Vacherlegraf during 2017 FIDE World Cup, or another famous example is Anand Gelfand round 8 World Championship match, which just ended quickly in 17 moves. Also, white is refraining from putting his knight on c3, later if needed can put it on d2, and thus keeping free the c3 square for the kingside knight. Meanwhile, we have bishop g7 by Bernadskiy, e4, black castles kingside, knight c3, c6, bishop e3, d6, knight ge2, a6, and c5. Of course, white could think about fastening his kingside development by moving away his knight, but in our game we have c5, knight bd7, c takes d6, e takes d6, knight g3. Well, usually in here white is putting his knight on f4 or queen d2, then knight f4 has also been seen, but in our game we have knight g3. I have to tell you that in Anti-Grünfeld system this is a standard square for the kingside knight, but in some cases this knight can find itself somewhat misplaced. b5 by Bernadskiy, bishop e2, c5, white castles kingside, and c takes d4. An interesting decision by black. Black is voluntarily getting an isolated pawn on d6, which in some cases can be a potential weakness. Bishop takes d4, bishop b7, rook e1, rook c8, bishop f1, rook e8, rook c1. It's not quite clear what is this white rook doing on c-file, as there is a weakness on d6. Putting the queen on d2 and then rook d1 looks better, but in our game we have rook c1, knight e5, queen b3, and h5. Already black is trying to start an attack on the king side, and right now black wants to emphasize the misplaced position of white knight on g3. Knight h1, which turns out to be a total blunder and allows black to pull out one of the best combinations ever. Yes, I can boldly claim that this is one of the best combinations ever and will definitely be treasured in chess books. Instead, it was better to put the rook on d1, but in our game we have knight h1, to which Bernadskiy answered with a magnificent... Well, if you wish you can pause the video and try to find black's next move, although the combination is extremely difficult and I'm sure that it's impossible to calculate all possible variations. So I guess that already you have found something, and now let's see what Bernadskiy played. In here, the young Ukrainian grandmaster went for a knight sacrifice and he captured on f3. G takes f3 is virtually forced, after which we have knight takes e4, while knight takes f3 destroyed white's defensive shield. Knight takes e4, opened up the queens and bishops diagonals. F takes e4. But before proceeding with the game, let's cover other lines as well. What if, for example, knight takes e4? Then in this case, black can capture on d4 with a check, and then on c1, and then black can remove this knight, and queen g5 check is coming, winning the rook on c1. Or after knight takes e4, if bishop takes g7, then queen g5 check, and knight takes g3. If rook takes e8, then rook takes e8, if here, then here, and then the light squared bishop is coming, and there is no escape. Black can capture on g2, or even rook e2 is playable, a beautiful blockading move, but this is more precise and leaves white no chance to survive. This exposed king has no chance to survive. You can't even save this bishop because, or I don't know, bishop d4, queen f4 will follow, and again white is suffering heavy losses. Or in here, if you play knight e2, yeah, queen c4, again black is winning. Or after knight takes e4, if rook takes e4, then simply queen g5 check, and then bishop takes e4, and then queen takes c1. All the time this rook on c1 is falling victim. And now let's proceed with our game. So after knight takes e4, we have f takes e4 in our main game, after which here comes bishop takes d4 check, knight f2, and queen h4 attacking the knight on f2. Rook c2, well, if queen c2, then this time rook takes e4 is winning. If rook takes e4, then bishop takes e4. We have two nasty pins, and these are demoralizing white's position. There is no way out. If here, then queen g4 check is coming, and checkmate will appear on the board. In our game, we have rook c2, after which here comes the exchange sacrifice. There it goes, guys. This time black is removing the knight, which was overprotecting the pawn on e4. B takes c3, and queen g5 check, bishop g2, and here comes the rook. Rook takes e4. We have two pins, and white's position is totally demoralized. If rook takes e4, then simply bishop takes e4 will follow. The queen is out of the game. That queen b3 was actually a dubious decision. In our game, we have king f1, and another magnificent move. This time, please pause the video and try to find black's next move. Ready? Well, without a queen sacrifice, as you know, there can be no immortal game. Here we go, guys. Queen takes g2, a marvelous queen sacrifice. King takes g2, which is allowing forced mate in 8. King takes g2, rook takes e1, discover check. These bishops are simply monsters, and together with the rook, they will now finish up white king. Knight e4. Well, if king g3, then again, this won't help white. Checkmate will follow very quickly. Rook e3 check, and then rook f3 checkmate. A very picturesque checkmate, right? In our game, that's why we have knight e4, trying to open up an heir for the king. But there is no way out. Bishop takes e4 is coming. King g3, rook g1 check, and finally we have a resignation. Now if king h4, then bishop f6 will follow, followed by bishop f5 checkmate. Or if a move like rook g2, then rook takes g2, and then a very strong move, rook g1. Although I have to tell you that other continuations are also winning. But rook g1 is the shortest way. And now if you accept the bishop sacrifice as well, then g5 is coming. The pawn is taking under control the h4 square, and the threat is bishop f5 checkmate. Now white king is getting checkmated into, let's just make a random move then. Here, and then h takes g4 checkmate. Just a fantastic game, guys. A game dropped down from the romantic era of chess. And now I would like to suggest to go through this winning combination without sidestepping the main line. So it all started from knight h1. Here comes knight takes f3 check, g takes f3, and knight takes e4. F takes e4, after which the bishop is joining the attack, knight f2, queen h4. Black pieces are one of the most precise squares, you know, rook c2 and rook takes c3. All black pieces are in action. B takes c3, queen g5 check, bishop g2, and we have rook takes e4, king f1, and there we have it, queen sacrifice, after which black is starting a king hunt, knight e4, bishop takes e4 check, king g3, and finally after rook g1 check we have a resignation in view of an imminent checkmate. There it goes. This is the line which is allowing black to win. g5, and the game is over. Check and then checkmate. What a game. This game is a serious contender of becoming the best game of 2019. Well, this is it, dear chess lovers. I'm sure that you enjoyed this beauty. Share it with your friends as well. Let them know about this. I will see you in my next video. Take care.